Hello, world. Good morning, namaste, and Nisam Bulavinaka from Sydney, Australia. I am Sashi Singh, the host of Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and I welcome you to episode 55, live on Facebook and on YouTube. Like always, I request that today, as we go right around the world by the wonders of Facebook and YouTube, that you please share the SSTP page on your own timelines so that we may share today's program with as many interested people as possible. And to ensure that you receive instant notifications for all future programs, please like the SSTP page and follow us as well. Welcome to the Thinking People's program, Sashi Singh's Talking Point, live on Facebook and YouTube. Firstly, though, I have an important announcement to make. Sashi Singh's Talking Point, SSTP, recognizes that questioning, constructive arguments, and opinions are part of conversation. But posts with aggressive personal attacks, profanity, name calling, swearing, defamatory in nature, and/or threatening will be removed immediately, and offenders will be blocked from being a part of the SSTP program. So let us all observe those rules and enjoy the program. Well, if you've been following the news in Fiji, the University of the South Pacific has been making the news headlines where there seems to be major differences of opinion between the Staff Association, the Vice Chancellor and President, and now there's even talk of a strike action. Shortly, we shall meet the President of the Association of the University of the South Pacific staff to find out what really are the major issues that has brought this matter into the public arena. That's coming your way very shortly. But before that, I am very pleased to have our SSTP regular, my colleague, Nikhil Singh, join us. Nikhil, you are back. Welcome back on SSTP.
Great to be back, Sashi. How are you doing?
I'm well, and I hope you're recovering well. You haven't been in the best of the flu's got you as well.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Good on you. Well, let's begin your segment today, Nikhil, with this young lad from Tavua, Yeshnil Karan. He's been etching his name in the sporting history books of Fiji, dominating in the long distance events at the 2023 Pacific Games in Honiara, Solomon Islands. What a performance. What's your take on this?
Sachi, what a phenomenal outing at the Pacific Games for 22-year-old Yeshnil Karan. He comes from the gold town of Tavua and he has bagged 3 gold medals from 3 events. As reported in Fiji Village, the former Tavua College student won the 10,000 meters race on Monday and the 5,000 meters event on Wednesday. He followed his golden run in the 3,000 meters steeplechase event on Friday. Now, let's not forget that the Team Fiji opening flag bearer Taniela Renimbongi also took 3 gold medals in weightlifting. He has been named as the best athlete of the 2023 Pacific Games. Curran was going for a fourth top four podium finish. However, he did not feature in the half marathon at the Games yesterday. He said he had 18 kilometers running in the scorching heat in 4 days, and if the conditions were not that harsh, he would not miss. He would not want to miss running in that race. I'm sure no one is going to hold it against him, Sashi. 3 gold
No.
medals, 22 years old. I'm sure we will see more of Yeshnil Karan.
Well, while talking of Yeshnil Karan, I read with interest your Facebook post about renaming of the Garvey Park in Tavua. What was that about?
Well, why not, Sashi? Garvey Park's been named by, the colonial history by a chap from that era who, in my personal opinion, probably doesn't bear any relevance now. There's a lot of literature if somebody wants to go and learn about the history, but this lad from Tavua, 22 years old, he will go a long way. It'll be a fitting reward, if you like, and a morale booster for Yeshnil Karan, and something for the people of Tavua, that we've got such a product of Tavua making a name, putting Fiji on the map, and I'm sure he's gonna go a long way.
I have no qualms about that. Name parks after your own local personalities. That's the way to go. Now, due to work commitments, we missed your company last week in episode 54. you were attending the International Trade Union Confederation Asia Pacific Fifth Regional Conference in Bangkok, Thailand. I understand the conference adopted some important resolutions and also elected ITUC's Asia Pacific president. Please tell us more.
Sashi, I think it is worth noting that the Fiji Trades Union Congress National Secretary and the incumbent ITUC Asia Pacific President Felix Anthony was returned for another term as president. He becomes the only person to have been elected for a third term, Sashi. This is a huge achievement for Fiji and the Pacific. I was there as part of the Australian Council of Trade Union delegation, and it is our delegation which moved Mr. Anthony's name, and this was seconded by our friends across the Tasman, the New Zealand Council of Trade Unions. In addition, Fiji delegate Jyotika Sharma is now the chair of the Women's Committee, and New Zealand delegate Zoe Port is the chair of the Youth Committee. And this has all been through a process of election, Sashi. So it's been a great outing for the Pacific region at this conference. In terms of resolutions, look, I've picked a few that I wanted to share. The first is a statement on Israel and Palestine conflict. It was inspiring to see both the delegations from Israel and Palestine working together at this conference to come up with a statement, with an agreed statement. There was a resolution on recognizing and protecting the rights of home-based workers, as we know that working from home is a thing now. Strengthening cooperation and coordination for the promotion and protection of the rights of migrant workers. Sustaining the struggle of the Indian trade union movement against the NDA-led government's anti-labor policies. There was a resolution on trade union leaders from Hong Kong, the Philippines, Myanmar, and other countries in the region who are being held captive by the respective government, authorities, and military regimes. And Sashi, one that I actually spoke on the conference floor was the restoration of democracy in Myanmar. That was another important resolution that was adopted at this conference.
Thank you for that wrap up from the conference, and great to know that our Lautoka Wayavi boy has again been re elected to that position. Moving on, Nikhil, Fiji's Prime Minister, Sitiveni Rabuka, has been making a case for a stronger action against the effects of climate change at the COP28 Climate Change Conference. He has put the emphasis on the transition to green shipping. What can you report on this?
So, actually, according to a FBC report, Sitiveni Rambuka has stressed the need for coordinated efforts and substantial investments in the transition to green shipping. Rambuka states that Fiji led a collaborative initiative with neighboring countries, including the Marshall Islands, Kiribati, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu, to establish the Pacific Blue Shipping Partnership. Rambuka outlined an ambitious plan to retrofit or replace over 11,000 vessels across the 7 Pacific member countries. He expressed optimism regarding the initiative's positive impact on the region's marine transport sector and the broader vision for a sustainable and resilient Blue Pacific, Sashi.
All right, and Nikhil, the Fiji Times reported last week that Infinite Power had signed a power purchase agreement with the Ministry of Fisheries and Forestry, which will allow it to manufacture and install what it says are the state of art wind turbines in 27 locations around Fiji and Rotuma to replace costly power from diesel generators that are powering the ministry's ice plants. However, there has been some further development with the acting Prime Minister and our chief guest from last week, Manua Kamikamida, intervening. What happened here, Nikhil?
Oh, the question is deal or no deal. Sashi, according to the government, no deal. The government has rejected 2 deals worth $122 million inked by the American Wind Turbine Company and 2 government agencies. Acting Prime Minister and Minister for Trade Manua Kamikamida in a media conference said, and I quote, "I just want to advise that those 2 agreements due process was not followed, and as such, both agreements are not enforceable." He further said, and I quote, "We have started some investigations by various stakeholders, which includes the Ministry of Finance, Department of Energy, Investment Fiji, FCCC, and also the Ministry of Civil Service. and those will report back to the office of the Prime Minister in due course. So, Sashi, he has vetoed that deal, and investigations are now underway.
Let's wait for those investigations. Well, Nikhil, thank you very much for your segment this morning. And I won't keep you waiting until the end of the program. Get some rest and look forward to seeing you on Thursday at the Fiji government function in the city.
You will see me there, Sashi. Thank you. Look forward to it.
All right. And till next week, back on SSTP on Sunday. Thanks, Nick. Have a wonderful day. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point live on Facebook and YouTube. If you can, please like and follow our SSTP page to receive notifications for all our future programs. To all our new first time viewers, a big bula vinaka to you. Welcome to SSTP. We have our chief guest waiting in the green room, and it is time now to officially welcome her. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome in episode 55 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point our chief guest. Elizabeth Reade Fong is the university librarian of the University of the South Pacific in Fiji, and she is also the president of the Association of the University of the South Pacific staff. Elizabeth Nisam Bulavinaka, good morning to you from Sydney, Australia. Welcome to SSTP.
Nisambula to you, Sashi, and good afternoon from Suva, where the sun is shining beautifully today.
That's a big change for Suva if it's not raining. All right. Well, before I begin today's interview, let me state that in the interest of striking balance, I extended an invitation to the Vice Chancellor, President of USP, Professor Paul Aluwalia, to appear in today's program. Professor Paul replied and stated, and I quote, "I would have very much liked to do this, but unfortunately, I am traveling at the moment, and it's hard to fit this in. I very much look forward to being part of the show next year." That was the response from the Vice Chancellor of the University of the South Pacific, Professor Paul Aluwalia. I respect his decision. I have in the past extended two invitations to Professor Paul Aluwalia, and he was busy on both occasions. I look forward to speaking with him in the future, and the sooner the better. There's a number of issues to be addressed. Now to our chief guest. Elizabeth, let me begin by saying that there is a perception in the public that all the Staff Association Union is concerned about is their salaries. People see this as selfish and greedy. In fact, one of our followers, Penny Senitautau, posted in our trailer poster that had your photograph advertising our show for today. And Penny wrote, and I quote, "Liu Muri Association. Greedy is the tonic for backstabbing." Now, that's quite sad. Firstly, is it all about money? Is salary the only concern, or is there more to it?
No, Sashi, it's not about the money. And I stand here today on behalf of all the staff. Though OSPS represents academic and professional staff, we've built a very close relationship with the INJ and admin union. And I speak on their behalf also. We have had their support. The staff would be greatly saddened to hear what is being said in the public. And I thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to bring this in. And I hope that the gentleman who made the statement is listening. And I say it's not all about the money in the context of what the staff had done in the period over 2019 to 2021, where there was COVID and there was the withdrawal of the Fiji government obligation, the grant that they are obliged to pay because of the number of students that they have here. Now, what the staff did in order to support the university at this time of greatest challenge was they gave up their annual leave. They reduced it from 25 to 10 days. They also got a reduction in FNPF. They forfeited increments and bonus payments. They gave up conference leave. And all this was done within a memorandum of understanding or agreement with the university. And I just might quote two sections from it. One section says that OSP shall neither pursue nor request for any salary adjustment for the triennium 2019 to 2021, but shall collaborate with the university management for purposes of constructively negotiating mutual terms and conditions of employment for the triennium 2022 to 2024. That the union shall consult the OSPs and its members on all major decisions that impact the staff either directly or indirectly, including, inter alia, any review of staff salary and benefits and major reorganization or restructure. No consultation on the 4% given or the incremental bonus that we will refer to later, and this was deemed inappropriate. So it's not all about the money, but it is about university leadership and management, conditions of service, and just and fair treatment of the staff of an institution that has been responsible for graduating over 50,000 Pacific Islanders. And I'm here to ensure that you get the right picture on how we have done that and what we propose to do in this current challenging situation.
I will give you every opportunity to present your case today. You spoke about that memorandum. So, for clarity, the union obliged with that memorandum because in that period up to 2021, nothing was sought as per the memorandum, correct?
That's right.
All right. Now, let's move on, and we are going to cover a lot of bases today. And my next question is what has given rise to the University of the South Pacific, our own USP, to be in the limelight again? It's been in the news.
The University Council, which is the highest governing body, met on the 27th and 28th of November. The council meets twice a year, May and November. And at each council, there is an agenda item that says staff matters. So in the May council, there was a submission made by the staff, and this was accepted. It caused quite a stir because it had been a long while since council members had heard about the plight of staff and what had been going on. What caused this to happen is we planned and put together a paper in accordance with the timeline of the council to have our issues reported to the council. But the council came back to us with a note saying that the paper would not be placed on the agenda. And so this is what has caused us to look at this issue in this way. For the council to not want to hear the staff was both an insult. We are core to the institution, and it reflects the kind of leadership that is in place. Why would you not want to hear your staff?
I'll discuss
we
that.
fail to understand that.
I'll discuss that. I've got part of that email, and I'll take you through that. But just for the sake of our viewers, if I may please set a little background here, let me set the scene. Kenyan-born Canadian Vice Chancellor Professor Paul Ahluwalia took up office in January the 1st, 2019. He was appointed to the USP with a mandate to modernize and reform the institution. He replaced Professor Rajesh Chandra, who held the position since 2009. In the first 3 months of his tenure, Professor Paul found out what he identified to be instances of questionable governance practices by the former leader, which he documented and submitted to the university's governing body, the USP Council, for its May 2019 meeting. Then the leakage of 11 odd pages of this document to a magazine informed the student body, staff, alumni, and the regional university community of Vice Chancellor Paul's concerns. Prior to Vice Chancellor Paul's submissions, many of the concerns were the subject of discussions among staff and students, but without written evidence and the former VC in place, action was not possible. The leakage provided the evidence and impetus for students and staff to express their outrage at the governance concerns. Fast forward to February 2021, Fiji police carried out a midnight raid at the home of the Vice Chancellor and summarily deported him on orders of the then Prime Minister in a move described by students as a coup and likened by the staff to Gestapo tactics. Elizabeth, at the time VC Powell was deported, and to the time when he returned after the government had changed, is it not true that the student body and the staff association were all in support of the vice chancellor? Was he not hailed as a hero figure?
Yes, he was, Sashi, at the time. He heard the cry of the staff regarding governance issues during his July visit, before he took up the position, and when he joined in the 2 months before he officially joined the university. So we thought we were getting someone who had good governance as his priority, justice, accountability, and transparency. And when he came in, that is something we thought he would deal with. Now, he is a worker, and we stood beside him saying, we must give him the opportunity to work and provide us with the leadership that we were seeking after the previous administration. So, yes, he was a hero in the period, but as a worker, we watched him to see how he would perform and respond to our needs.
All right, so he was a hero. Then what happened in a short space of months to change the mood against VC Pal?
It's not just months, Sashi. The
Hmm.
issues have surfaced over a period of time from 2021, when he was out in Nauru, when he was in Australia for a period, and then the council agreed and they welcomed him in Samoa. And all that time, he was the vice chancellor and he was being paid. So he was being observed in terms of what he was doing. And that is something that we will discuss. For many of us, it was not so much about Paul the person, it was about the issue of someone being thrown out because they'd made a complaint about someone well connected, but who needed to be given the opportunity to prove himself. So the issues are about management and leadership, and there's nothing sudden about it. And we've raised our concerns on many issues over a period of time. And now that his contract is being reconsidered, we made a greater effort to bring our concerns to the council, but unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears in terms of being on the agenda.
All right, talking of the agenda, and you just referred a little while earlier to that paper. I understand that in May this year, as you said, a staff paper was presented to the University Council that drew attention to the many issues faced by the staff that were unresolved after 2 to 3 years of internal discussions. Now, what were some of the matters that were unresolved?
Okay, let me explain. There are two fora where the staff have seats, and this is on the Staff Policy Committee, and SMT, the senior management team, has quarterly meetings with the unions, with both unions. So it's at these two levels that we take our issues. And these issues have been reoccurring all through those meetings. They move from one committee to the other without resolution. So many of these issues include, I'll just pull up my paper on it, the job evaluation, workloads, regional employment, the retention of regional staff and employees, operationalizing policies, making sure the policies are complied with and applied, and staff retention. We were losing a lot of staff for various reasons. The other one is women in higher education, women in leadership, and I know we'll talk about that. Other issues included concessions for staff. So these issues had been going round and round, including the job evaluation for INJ and academic and professional staff. So these were the issues that we referred to
Now,
as
would I be
unresolved.
would I be correct if my understanding is right, and I've read this, that in that May 2023 meeting, um, you were encouraged to make your points for the November meeting, to present submissions, I take it, in the November meeting. So, what was presented to the council in the November 2023 meeting?
What was presented to the council for consideration at the November 2023 meeting was in response to what the council had directed from the May meeting. Come back to tell us what issues have been resolved, if there are any unresolved issues. So, in other words, update the council on where things had gone between university management and the unions. And because it was council and there arose other unresolved issues or new issues, we also included them in that paper. But basically, our paper was a response to council saying, you and the unions and management go talk about these issues and come back to us. So that is what we did.
So, what was presented to the council in that November meeting?
What was presented to the council was resolution on a number of issues. And I look at my paper again, the 5-year contract for teaching assistants. This had been going on, and the vice chancellor had been adamant that they were not to be treated as academic staff. I will say some more on that later. Workload, the number of vacancies, and that's going to come up also. There are 455 vacant positions, so workloads have increased, doubled and trebled for some staff. Job evaluations, there's been no job evaluations done, and positions have changed. We're in a changing environment. Positions have changed, and these need to be looked at, realigned into the right position description areas and categories of classification within the university staff, and rewarded accordingly. Regional employment. So all these issues we talked about, and they actually were moved to resolution. The TAs now are recognized as academic and senior staff, which makes a difference. So those were some of the issues that we said were resolved. One of the issues that was unresolved as a result of a log of claims, that's how we came to that, was about academic staff representation in terms of equity to the council. There are 2 professors from the Senate, and there was a proposal to have 1 professor represent the professors at the university and to take the other professorial position to represent the academic staff from TAs to associate professor, whereby they would vote for their representative. Then you would have equity and representation of all the classifications of staff at the university, professors, the other academics, professional staff, and INJ and admin staff. And the new issues were the salary adjustment issue, which could not be discussed 2019 to 2022, and we agreed that we would wait to see resolution of that by the Fiji government in terms of their payment of the obligation. So that came up, and there were a couple of other issues in terms of, let me just look at this, the council secretariat's failure to send us a staff statement after the meeting, and the vice chancellor and president's position. His contract is coming to an end in August 2024, so we had a statement on that, a new statement on that. And then we were informed at a discussion here on campus, the VC staff forum, where we were allocated 2 hours, and the management spoke to us for 1 hour, 20 minutes, which left us with only 40 minutes and 500 staff to ask questions in 40 minutes. And there's an intention to reduce the ratio of professional staff to academic staff by 50% in 2024.
Let
So
me
we
stop you
wanted
there.
to.
Let me stop you there because I've got questions prepared for you to address some of these issues as we go along. But that's a great summary. Now, what was the reason for the paper not being tabled at the council meeting, and who made that decision?
Apparently, the pro-chancellor made that decision, and the response was there were some issues that were not in the ambit of council, and one of them was the salary adjustment, and other issues that they said we needed to, that could be dealt with through committees of council. The difficulty there is the staff are not represented on the committees of council, and it's dependent on the vice chancellor taking the issues to that committee.
Makes me wonder, were the issues raised not worthy of council's deliberations? Certainly sounds as
Obviously,
if
there's
though.
2 views.
Mm.
There's two views. We thought they were very worthy of council's consideration, and because university management would not speak with us, they were our next and final port of call within the institution. We wanted to keep these issues internally, and we hope that if university management couldn't decide and the vice chancellor reports to council and is appointed by council, that council would be the logical place to go to resolve this internally. But somehow council did not agree to that. We are aware that the pro-chancellor would have consulted the vice-chancellor, who had on an earlier occasion indicated his reservations about the May council paper, but he did let that through. But on this occasion, I would imagine his discussion with the pro-chancellor, he would have influenced the decision of the pro-chancellor.
Take a break. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is Ms. Elizabeth Reade Fong, the president of the Association of the University of the South Pacific Staff. Please like and follow the SSTP page and share the page if you can. Elizabeth, let us now look at the main points raised in the paper that was supposed to be presented to the council. Firstly, can you please explain briefly what was in your log of claims?
All right, let me pull up the log of claims paper that I have here. All right, the log of claims was 5-year contracts for teaching assistants. These assistants are core to our operations, to the academic operations, and they comprise regional persons only. They come in usually with a bachelor's, they do a master's, they're expected to do a master's, and we assume that they want a career in academia. So they come in, they do that, they provide tutorials, they help teach the staff, and they need to be rewarded and helped to move up. The vice chancellor has a different view based on his experiences in other universities, which we don't believe really applies here. Ours come in, they are working full time, they are trying to do studies. This is not the case in institutions overseas. Many of them are doing their studies full time. So here he was trying to impose something that doesn't work for us. And in this way, we thought he was failing to see it from a regional perspective, see that issue. I've mentioned the workload, vacancies, staff carrying more loads than they should. Job evaluation, I've said something about that. Regional employment, keeping regionals employed here at USP, not asking to bend the policies or break the rules, but being conscious and mindful. For example, we had a case of a staff member who had served at Lodala for 20 years at a lecturer position. A position came up in his home country at the senior lecturer position. So we thought that would be a great opportunity to send the person there. He doesn't have a PhD, but the condition was if the person went back to his home country, he would get a PhD scholarship and he'd be able to do both. From our perspective, and I know the committee's perspective, this was an opportune time to get a regional back to his home country, get the PhD. Why not give this person the senior lecturer contract with the proviso that in this period you must obtain and complete the PhD? So for us, that's something about regional employment. Operationalizing policies, there's a whole lot of policies relating to women, equity, and inclusivity that we felt were being neglected. And then women in higher education leadership. Our senior management team at the moment has one woman in leadership. We only have one professor at the university. Since 2011, this has been the worst situation ever in terms of gender equity or sex equity at the university. So we're wanting issues done. So all of these, staff retention, we've talked about, an MOA for 2022 to 24. The union submitted its MOA for this period in December 2021. We submitted a draft to the then HR director, what we call the EDPWS, the Executive Director, People and Workforce Strategy. For a period, it sat there. That has only recently been signed. So things like this have taken a while. Concession for children studying at USP. All staff whose children come to study at USP get a really good concession. This is building up Pacific Island capacities in the main. Of course, international staff who work at the university, their children will also be eligible. However, a proviso is you have to be under 25.
Elizabeth, let me
If,
stop you there, please.
yeah.
With all due respect to you, you're going to finish my program in 5 minutes because you're touching on subjects that I really want to get to the bottom of. So
All
please
right.
allow me to do that because I want to take it in a systematic way.
All
So
right.
I hope you don't mind.
No,
Um,
that's fine. That's fine.
let's move to this one. With regards to salary adjustment, what was the management's attitude to that?
I think we viewed the management's attitude as obstinate and uncaring for all that had been done, given there were savings of some 14.8 million.
Yeah, come to that savings because I've read that the paper stated that with what the university had saved in staff costs for positions not filled, as you said, totaled something like $14.8 million. Now, this is a huge sum of money by any stretch of the imagination. You mentioned a little while ago staff vacancies. I think you mentioned 455 vacancies. That sort of tells me that there has to be a staff crisis at the USP.
Yes, there is a crisis. Any organization that has 30% of its positions vacant will face a staff crisis. So the staff do feel that there is a crisis, and that relates to governance as we see it.
So, what can you say about management's refusal to discuss or negotiate salary adjustments?
Well, the impression that we get is that they've totally forgotten or have chosen to ignore what the staff did for the university in the challenging times of the 4 years. The COO began this year and he was not party to that. So I'm not so sure that he understands what the university did. There has been no consideration for the cost of living at the level that staff should be recompensed. Some things have been given, but not to the level that we believe should be recompensed.
All right, let's look at some figures here. I understand that 4% salary adjustment was granted previously, and that the staff union was seeking an additional 11% adjustment across the board. Now, this sounds alarming when one sees a huge 11% increase being sought. This would then total a salary adjustment of 15%, would it not?
That's correct. That's correct. Over a 5 year period, there's nothing alarming about that.
Hmm.
Cost of living established by the Reserve Bank of Fiji says it went up 3% each year in the period that we were working with the university to ensure everything ran fine. I recall when Vice Chancellor Paul first joined the university, he saw that all these salary adjustments took place at the end of a triennium. And he said that from his perspective, he would like this to be factored in each year. Unfortunately, COVID came, Fiji first government had its issues with us, and that was not possible. So basically, this is a just referring to what he proposed earlier and what we're asking for, but we waited till things settled down a little bit. So 3% each year. I read on Facebook that, and the Fiji Times, EFL recently received a 5% increase in 2022 and another 5% in 2023. So they got 10%, and ours is a 5 year period. So at 15%, we think it's quite reasonable.
Does the staff union believe that the university can find the financial resources to make such salary adjustments as the ones that you seek?
Yes, we do. We believe that the university has money. Every meeting we attend, we hear that there are savings. And as you mentioned, the vacancies of $14 million is that. So we did our calculation on what it might cost for all staff, from the intermediate and junior staff, those who earn $4.59 an hour, to those at the top of the scale of professor. And we took the midpoint salary for this, midpoint salary and the costs for all staff, and it falls within that 14 million. But we are saying this because the summary of the cash position that was presented to council in May on page 9 said 2020 cash position was 70.2 million, 2021 73.2 million, and 2022 75.7 million. So we do believe that the university has the ability to pay, and it's confirmed by financial reports to the university council from which we took our evidence.
Now, in terms of the staff union's demands, how comparable is your demands to, say, other academic institutions in Fiji? Would you
Oh,
happen to know that?
well, we're aware of what the FNU staff received. And from memory, I believe they got 5% in October, backdated October 2022, backdated to January 2022. In April 2023, they got another 2%, backdated, and a bonus. And then they, at different levels, they got incremental jumps. So the USP uses the FNU as a comparator when it's convenient. So we believe that if FNU can pay that, we as a regional institution, with the assistance of development partners and the savings over the years, university is in a position to pay.
Now, I've read that paper, and that paper states that the university has argued that it cannot pay and must set aside funds should the Asian Development Bank call on its loan. How do you respond to that?
The Asian Development Bank loan is for the Solomon Islands, as far as I'm aware. And we're also aware from the council papers, through our staff reps, that this loan is payable, fully payable in 2046. So our understanding is, like any of us who have a mortgage, we have to pay monthly and balance the budgets out. So we believe the university should be doing the same. And we have no doubts that, or a little doubt rather, that the ADB would call on the university to pay what it owes in such a manner. I do
Mhm.
believe that they understand what the institution is about, higher education, and they would respect that and not call on the university to do that. So we don't understand why they are using that as one possible response.
I mean, when I read that there's something like Fijian $19 million in surplus, I just begin to wonder as to what is really happening. I mean, I have a view that the academic staff of any university, they are the shapers of the future of the country. They help shape the minds of the young people who will eventually become the leaders of tomorrow. Surely there must be room for negotiation to better the standards of the staff in terms of working conditions, salary, etc. It's a two-way street. I say that at any university, the university staff deserves more than the average worker any day because of the skill, expertise, and qualifications they possess, and because of the nature of the work to shape the future of our country. How would you respond to that view of mine?
The decision to not wish to negotiate shows an authoritarian leadership in place. University staff, other people may not think deserve a little more, but we have comparators.
Hmm.
And the comparator universities are the ones we base our salaries on. And in fact, we don't even aim for 100% of the comparator universities. Professors are set at 80% of the professorial salary for those for professors at our comparator institutions. So yes, we do believe that staff deserve more than they're getting, and it's difficult to understand why the university management and even the council are looking at it from this perspective. Of course, there are maintenance things that have been backdated that need to be attended to, but all of these can be negotiated and attended to given the current funding and the commitment by the Fiji government to pay their obligations.
All right, take a break. If you've got some water, have a sip of water. I'll come back to you very shortly. For those of our viewers who have joined us late, I am speaking with the president of the Staff Association of the USP, Miss Elizabeth Reade Fong. And let me state that in the interest of striking balance, I did extend an invitation to the Vice Chancellor, President of USP, Professor Paul Aluwalia, to appear in today's program. Professor Paul did reply and stated, I would have very much liked to do this, but unfortunately, I am traveling at the moment and it is hard to fit this in. I very much look forward to being on the show next year. So, some folks have written comments that they wanted him on the show. Let me assure you that I did try, and when the good professor is ready, I will extend him the courtesy of having his say on SSTP. Elizabeth, back to you now. Let me address the issue of the withdrawal of the support of the Vice Chancellor. I understand that in September this year, your staff union voted on the issue of the reappointment of the Vice Chancellor. What was that about, and what was the outcome of that voting?
Yes, the Association of USP Staff held an OGM, Ordinary General Meeting, in September, and the matter of the VC's end of contract was raised. As a result of that, a motion was moved to find out how staff felt, and it was done by secret ballot, and 94% of those present at the meeting did not agree with the renewal of contract or reappointment. So there are many staff who've had experiences where they felt they were not treated fairly, etc. So that was the outcome of the OGM. And I do know that on the same day we held our OGM, yes, so the admin and INJ staff union, USPSU, held theirs. And in the same vein, their responses to the same question was 100% that they would not support reappointment.
Wow, those are staggering figures. 94% voting against the Vice Chancellor. What would have brought that mood about?
There are quite a few issues that have come up at different levels. So, different levels of staff having different issues. For example, at the admin and INJ level, which used to have a category of hourly paid staff but have moved into salaried staff now, the average wage was $4.59 an hour. When the university gave an increment at some point, some of them got $60 for the year. The VC was unaware of these gaps. So what was $60 going to do? But that's one thing. There's issues relating to the overturning of committee decisions. A committee makes a decision, vice chancellor overturns it. There's also been a concern that he has prioritized the international rankings issue over actual regional issues that need attention. And his inability to deal with personnel so that we are losing regional staff. But I've alluded to that already. The lack of appreciation and application of diversity and equity in appointments. We're seeing that. Another issue that has come to the fore is the non-post-retiree age extensions. The university has a policy whereby those who hit the age of 65 may be retained for another year. And he has deferred that meeting. There have been no post-retirement meetings this year. And as a result, at this point, we are losing very well experienced people who could be retained for another year in order to fill these vacant positions to serve the students. One section said, we have refused enrollment of 3 PhD students, potential students, because we do not have the staff to supervise them. So these kinds of things, they're asking questions. If this is 65, the age, and you're stopping staff from filling these positions, why is it not also being applied to the VC who also turned 65 in January? The issue of the relocation to Lodala campus, VC
Now
has said,
I'll come to
you come
that
to that?
because
Okay, that's an
I'm going to
issue
just
that's coming up.
that's an issue on
Okay,
its
just,
own. That's
yeah,
an
all
issue on
right.
its own, and do apologize
Yep,
for butting in. Um,
that's fine.
to Elizabeth, to many people, Professor Paul Aluwalia comes across as being a very responsible gentleman. In fact, if I may add, you were one of his most ardent supporters, were you not? And then what has happened now to suddenly withdraw that support?
It has been the way he has managed the university and his leadership skills. When we first met Professor Pal, there was a whole lot of issues going on. Seeing his managed form of management and his management skills did not come out very clear in those days. During the crisis period, it was a case of crisis management, and together with the staff, we managed the crisis. He has to acknowledge that the staff were the ones who enabled him to look good in that period of crisis. But his whole approach to difficult staff discussions also has come up in the discussion. So these are how he manages the recruitment of new staff. We have policies. We have to justify when we advertise. Now we also have to justify again when we go to interview. Then we have to justify again before the offer is made. And this is holding up issues and frustrating staff. So these kinds of policies, which eventually have to have his approval, are impacting on the way staff operate and do their jobs. So for me, these are concerns. As the president of the union, I hear about these grievances and we take them up. When staff have made arrangements, they're burnt out, they've made arrangements and need to take leave for a period of time, is declining the arrangements that they've made and recommending issues like, well, you can have leave without pay. How can someone survive on leave without pay? For us, as long as the students are not impacted and affected, that should be considered. So these kinds of things come up through the grievance process of the Association of USP Staff.
Now, I have seen on some social media posts comments about staff and their workplace issues. One such post on Facebook said that USP staff are like indentured laborers. I mean, that's quite tough. What do you say to such a comment on social media?
That comment also came up in this internal survey that OSPs did. And the feeling is that contracts do not give staff security. They feel exploited in a time of vacant positions. Nothing is being done. And because they need jobs, they have no option but to carry the loads in order to ensure the university runs and to secure their contracts. If they don't do that, their jobs are put on the line. And there is also the fear that had the Fiji First government come back into play, that some of the staff might have been taken in for questioning. So this whole environment feels like uh, indentured labor system for some staff.
Do you think, or does your association, do they think that it's sort of like a top heavy management and there's also like micromanagement taking place in the USP management hierarchy?
That has come up. The word micromanaging has come up. I had a conversation with one staff member who said, "We don't have a cleaner in our office." And it was not allowed by the vice chancellor. So, yes, we see that as micromanaging. And that is not appreciated at all. Staff want to work in an environment where they're able to get on with their work with the appropriate support. Yes, that is an issue that has come up.
Excuse me for one moment. Thank you. A staff at the USP contacted me and called the Vice Chancellor the island hopper. Now, this is not complimentary at all. There seems to be anger in some staff about the Vice Chancellor's travels. I'd like to ask you, why is that?
I think the anger is they're seeing the vice chancellor traveling, but we're not seeing the benefits of that travel. The campuses are struggling with infrastructure. The infrastructure is falling apart. So visits to Vanuatu, visits to the Solomon Islands, even though they're getting a new building, even in Samoa where he is, apparently we hear that the infrastructure is not what it should be. So what are the benefits? The staff are having a hard time seeing what the benefits are of this. You go to a PIFS meeting, when you come back, what are the benefits? People are asking for more tangible evidences of what the benefits are of this supposed island hopping that someone referred it to as.
All right, have a little break. We'll come back to you, and I'd like to discuss per diems. I thought that we were only having issues with our government representatives in Parliament in terms of their per diem, but I'll come back to you on that in just a moment.
Okay,
You are
sure.
watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is Miss Elizabeth Reade Fong, the president of the Association of the University of the South Pacific Staff. Please like and follow the SSTP page, and you'll receive instant notifications of future programs and other events that takes place. Well, as I said, per diem. A very popular blog site is Grubsheet, run by award-winning journalist Graham Davis. Now, on his page, I think earlier this week, you raised the issue of per diems. SSTP, as I said, has been hounding the government on their per diems, and I did not know that this was also a huge issue at the USP. Elizabeth, what is the issue about the per diem, and why did you raise this?
This was brought to our attention as the union when, based on a case in the Solomon Islands, and I'll tell you about that. But for as long as I've worked at the university, our per diem rates have been based on the UN per diem, same cities, etc. And this is the first time we've seen a diversion from the UN per diems to show a different allowance for Denara as opposed to Nandi, and an increase in the per diem for Suva, which is higher. Why people are raising this, it's too coincidental with the Vice Chancellor and CEO having to travel to and from their base location in Samoa. So we raised this, and at the current calculation, it costs $4,300 Fijian per week that they may be in town. And so that is a concern when we're being told about how uh, salary adjustments can't be paid. But we do understand that because they come from outside, they have to pay. But the VC does have accommodation, but I think we might raise that later.
Yes,
But
I
I
will
have to
raise that
also
later.
add, when the union met with the Vice Chancellor on this issue and raised it at the SMT quarterly meeting, his statement was, "I did not have anything to do with the discussions. However, he has to sign off on that before it can be loaded on the website and made official."
When the Vice Chancellor travels from Samoa to come to Fiji for his work, for meetings, USP is based in Suva. What is this per diem about Denarau?
We asked the same. Why is there a separate per diem for Dinara? And we were informed that there are increasing number of UN and development partners meetings held at Dinara. So an appropriate per diem has to be paid. In the past, we know that meetings were held in Denara that some of us attended, but we used the per diem and stayed in hotels in Nandi and traveled to the venue. We
Mhm.
lived and worked within the per diem, so that's why questions were raised.
One senior USP staff contacted me this week once he knew that you were appearing on the show and had a long chat with me and said that it is so unfortunate that while staff are struggling, while hourly paid workers are struggling, his words, that the vice chancellor is living it up. What would you say to such a comment? I mean, I wish Professor Powell was here to defend himself, but he's not, and I'm asking you that question. Would that be an accurate summary that he's living it up?
That is how people will view it. That, unfortunately, that is how people will view it. In the policies, people are entitled to per diems, but linked to that, what real effort has been made to persuade Samoan government that he must come back to Suva? He has made statements about it, and there is a home here.
I'm going to come back to that home. Um, I've heard both sides of the arguments on that. But sticking to this point right now on per diems, do you think there are double standards at play when it comes to per diem?
Definitely. And the unions have evidence of this. And I alluded to that when we talked about this earlier. It was a group of admin INJ staff who had to go work in the Solomons. And this idea of hiring homes through the Airbnb process for staff to stay in actually was put in place before the per diem and travel policy was officially accepted. And we as union had input. And ours was, if you're going to do this, use this approach, you must have a framework in place. We have yet to see the framework, but we know that that was being implemented before the policy was approved. Now that the policy has been approved, we see that it's continuing, and in some countries it's not working. A most recent example is staff went to the Solomons to work. The Airbnb house had not been organized. They were going to end up sleeping at the campus, but the campus director felt sorry for them and took them to his home. Now, if that's not double standards, what is it?
I'm a bit intrigued here. I mean, there's so much that you and I will discuss today. How come most of these issues have not been brought to light by the media in Fiji? Uh, don't the unions pass media statements and press statements to let the media in Fiji cover these things, ask questions?
At the university, this is our institution, and we'd prefer not to air our dirty linen in public, so the
Fair enough.
saying goes. And so we try to keep it in the institution where we are supposed to be able to dialogue, talk, come to agreement. We teach our students this. We need to apply it in our operations. So we only go out when we feel that we've exhausted everything internally. And whilst the media has been very good at times, sometimes they do have issues with the way they report issues. And prior to this year, the media was severely split with the last government. So it could have been the issues would be misrepresented and just not add anything to the internal discussion. So our approach has always been due process, follow due process. VC Pal was taken out of the country, not following due process. We don't want to be linked to that. But it's always, at the end of the day, justice for those that we serve.
All right, I can respect that. Now, you'd appreciate that COVID-19 taught us all several things. And among them was the ability to hold meetings via Zoom or Skype. Why is it that while the Vice Chancellor is located in Samoa, that meetings cannot be held by Zoom, for example? Surely that would be far more economical and a huge cost saving exercise for the university. How do you respond to that?
Yes, it is cheaper, and working by Zoom does serve a purpose. But there are some times when you need to have the face to face discussion. Why are leaders at COP in Dubai and not sitting here in a room? Because there's that networking aspect that happens. And we believe that Zoom works in some spaces and not in others. USP is not in the business of making profits or having excessive surpluses. So we understand that there could be savings, but not at the expense of the decision making process and clarity on issues. So there are times when we believe that we're not going to save the money, it's better to do the face to face, especially on staff promotion, staff performance. It helps when it's face to face.
Do you think there is an orchestrated attempt to erode staff benefits at the USP?
Sadly, yes. Because I've been here a very long time, I have seen what benefits have been removed. The aim is to make us less specific in our approach and more like our international comparators, whereby you get this, these benefits you don't get. And I recall as a young librarian going to conferences and meeting only university librarians or senior people at those conferences, and they wondered how I got there. So I said, because my institution allows me to, and they think that's great. So it's trying to retain that in terms of what we've done. Compassionate leave has gone, and it was based on what took place during Pal's VC Pal's situation and what staff were doing. But I think it was approached in the wrong way. The people who abused it should have been taken to task as opposed to taking away the policy. And we have a couple of people who've come back to the university after some years, and they reckon that our care for workers, care for staff has been eroded.
Some comments coming through via our SSTP page. Some are wondering, because Vice Chancellor Pal is based in Samoa, how often does he travel to Fiji?
Ooh, on average, I would say twice a month, maybe
Hmm.
3 times a month, but and for differing periods. He was here for council. He came in on the Saturday. Council was Monday, Tuesday. I believe he went back Thursday.
Hmm.
There is a meeting that I will be attending with him next week in Nandi for USPSA Federal, and I'm informed he will be back there, and that's Tuesday to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this coming and going, I would work it out at maybe 2 full weeks per month.
Okay. You alluded to this matter that I'm going to bring up next, and correct me if I'm wrong. A staff member from USP told me that children of the USP staff can study at the university free in some cases, and that this has been going on for years. And it is a staff benefit that has, for example, seen some of the poor workers at the university being able to educate their children. Now, is it true that this benefit is being removed now?
No, no, that's not correct, Sashi. The benefit is not being removed. The benefit is being retained in its current state, which sets, and this is what we want to open up. We want to open up the access because it involves largely our Pacific staff and our children. The policy says that you may come to the university and receive the concession if you are under the age of 25 and dependent on your parents. If you don't fit that category, or you are disabled and dependent on your parents, if you don't meet those criteria, you forfeit a concession. Now we think that is wrong. Your child is your child, married, single, or whatever. In the Pacific, after the age of 25 to 35, 40, many are getting into mortgages, marriage, responsibilities to the village, to the community, to the church, to everything. So, what is going to fall out? Education will fall out. Whereas with this concession, if they open it up, this will allow our Pacific Islanders to engage and enjoy higher education more than they currently do now. When we talked about this matter some 2 years ago, we had quite good discussions on it. And the only issue, and it appeared to go through, open it up. And actually, my argument was I noticed that spouses, the policy on spousal concession is open to one spouse. If you get a second spouse, that spouse gets the option to study. Some actually have a third spouse. So they all get the option to study. My argument is our children remain our children, whether they're 25, 35, 45. And in the Pacific, they're likely to come into university later than out in other countries. So all of this made us push this to be opened up, and it was costed by the executive director of finance at 0.16% of the university's budget, some $300,000 it costs. Now for regional, for our Pacific cleaning staff, staff at the lower levels, for their children to be able to get this will change their lives. And this for me is something close to my heart. My two children came here. They were under the age of 25. They fitted the criteria and got their first bachelor's. I told them, don't apply for scholarships, which they probably would have got. I said, because leave that for others who need it. I'm here at the university and we will get this. But there are many whose children come in later. And at postgraduate studies, nobody in the Pacific is doing postgraduate studies under the age of 25. There may be a few, but they're not the majority. So this is something that helps our Pacific people, and we are very strong in pushing this. Even if it goes to 600,000 of a budget of 180 million, we feel that it is justified.
Let me now talk to you about the vision and strategy for the forthcoming years at the university. What is in store on this count? What's the vision? What's the strategy?
That question was asked at the OGM. A senior staff member asked Professor Pal. We had invited him to come and have a Talanoa with the staff. Whilst we wanted a back and forth Talanoa, his was a one-way projection and he only had limited time, so basically it only allowed for a couple of questions. But a senior staff member asked him what his personal vision was for the university. And he actually took offense at being asked that. That was our observation of his reaction, which was a pity, because based on his personal vision will grow the university's vision also. The two are linked. As the leader of the institution, he would have to have a clear vision of where he wants to take the university. Instead, he referred to our current vision, which is about shaping Pacific futures. So I thought it was an opportunity lost for him to convey to the staff who had stood by him through thick and thin in his early days. So what his personal vision is remains unclear to us.
And as I said earlier on to our viewers, I did invite the Vice Chancellor, President of the USP, Professor Paul Aluwalia, to appear on this program. And due to his travels, he could not give me a commitment for today. However, I do extend publicly right now an open invitation to Professor Paul Aluwalia to appear on SSTP whenever you want to address a number of issues that's being discussed today, and perhaps there's other issues to be discussed with you as well. So, Professor Paul Aluwalia, I know you watch this program. Whenever you are ready, sir, let me know and I will accommodate you on SSTP. Elizabeth, you mentioned a staggering figure regarding staff shortage. You said 455 vacant positions. What is the strategy to address this staff shortage?
The strategy for the union is going to be a work to rule approach, which we are working through now internally. Because by work to rule, it means the staff will work to their job descriptions, the 8 to 4:30 day, the 7 to 5 p.m. day. And we're hopeful that in this process, university management will come to realize that there's a serious need to fill vacant positions. Now, we understand that there is always an opportunity to streamline, relook, and we're not saying no to that. But 455, if we fill 255, 300, and look at the others, we'll be making a move. So it may only be through a response like work to rule that we actually do something about the situation.
Now, surely with something like 455 odd vacant positions at USP, there must be considerable pressure on the existing workforce. I mean, what is the impact of the staff shortage on staff and students?
When you don't have people in place, bodies in place, it impacts on efficiencies. Everything takes that much longer on one hand when the staff say, this is our institution, we've got to make it work, we will work the extra hours. The other impact of that is we lose good applicants because things just take so long. We've come to realize, and university management is very well aware, that the university is no longer an employer of choice. Everybody used to want to come and work at USP. Now, people our best are leaving the university for UN agencies, development partner offices, because the work environment is better, the salary is better, and the conditions are better. So if we are going to want to attract the best, we've got to deal with this issue. And lastly, my final comment on this is the increase in seriously ill staff has come to our attention. The health of the staff is being impacted because not have they only been doing double and treble the amount of work they're expected to do, they are also doing this over long periods of time. So there is much dissatisfaction in that area and with results and the vacancies in place.
So there must be some real serious concerns about the mental well-being of your staff.
Yes, yes, there are concerns, and I do notice that there's been a reinstatement of counselor positions instead of outsourcing. So now staff have opportunity to go and the students to go to counselors on campus, which is indicative. The fact that we came back to that outside of the cost of it was, I think, a recognition that there is a negative impact and the need for counseling services.
All right, I've been told by a staff at the USP that under the former Vice Chancellor, the late Professor Rajesh Chandra, there was the quality of research strategy in place to achieve unprecedented levels of research output that was recognized internationally. What new innovative strategies have been implemented by the current Vice Chancellor?
In response to that, my recollection is Professor Chandra made every effort to increase research output to the extent that he offered cash rewards for publishing in A rank journals and A plus rank journals, etc. And this really moved the rankings, the research rankings up for the university. They used the quality of research criteria, how it was at the time, and that worked fine as far as many were concerned. When Professor Powell came in, he did not view the reward system in the same way. He said, this is part of academia, you must do research. So he removed that. In removing that reward, I do believe it impacted somewhat on the commitment and encouragement. But academics know publish or fail and disappear. So they have kept that up. However, there is a concern with the QOR, we call it, because there were a number of, under Professor Pal, he wanted it reviewed and revised. Right now, we still have not, after 5 years, got a final QOR. And the recent engagement on promotions, the application of what they call the H index is being applied, but it is not actually in the QOR. So that is raising questions. So yes, the issue of the QOR began with Rajesh and rewards. And I have to say that our rankings that is being attributed to Professor Pal actually started in Professor Chandra's era. And when he came in, he was able to capitalize on the ground that had been set. So it wasn't something that was his own initiative per se, but he did try to help it along.
Now, I believe you are on record as saying that there has been political interference in the university's dealings. Would you like to comment on that?
Okay, the University Council is made up of ministers of education in the main. They are political appointees, and that has always been the case. We noted in the first probably 40 years that we were the most successful example of regional cooperation because the focus was on education. The politics could be left outside the door better than anyone is doing now. Since the predecessor to Rajesh and now, we're aware of the political agendas of the region, which has gotten more complicated. We recognize that. And I do have to say, it what's the word I want to say? It filters into what is going on in the university and at the council. So look at the Fiji situation. Fiji has 5 representatives to council, the permanent secretary to finance, but he can be replaced by the minister for education, the permanent secretary for education, Miss Fei Yi, and Professor Stephen Ratuva at this point in time. Now let's just think about when they have to come to vote on issues. There is a coalition in place, a coalition with one making the decision. So I'm sure there are discussions going on in terms of not only USP education and what the council has to decide, but just how it all peters out in the political arena. So yes, we can't deny that there's politics. We just try to ensure that the decision-making focus is on education and not political agendas in the region. Thank you.
There is this perception that the students are really supporting their vice chancellor. Some, in fact, hero worship him. Are the students really supporting the vice chancellor, and how does one gauge that so called support?
I think the perception is based on the fact that there was a statement after the university council, but I am not aware of any poll or any survey that was conducted. And those who wrote the statement come from USPSA Federal, which is the overarching body for all the campuses that have their student associations. And in fact, I sit on the USPSA Federal, so I know some of the young people who are leading. And after that statement was made, one not from USPSA Federal, but one from outside, wrote to me and said, "Ma'am, we had no idea about this. So we're not sure where it came from." So this is just based on that. But on the ground, what I've heard from my staff traveling, other staff, some of them being union executives, the students at the campuses are complaining, constantly complaining about the standard of the infrastructure in which they have to work. One campus, somebody said, in fact, it was the Secretary General of the USPSA who had visited the MLS campus earlier this year. And he came back and said the grass was up to his knees. And we were at a function together, and I said, maybe you should draw it to Vice Chancellor's attention because he was there. And he did, and Vice Chancellor said, we're going to MLS the next week. But the comment was they had been there a year before and nothing had been done. So it's very interesting to see that statement.
Now, one of the issues covered in your paper referred to the appointment of former Fiji First Government Minister Dr. Mahendra Reddy. Was due process followed in Dr. Reddy's appointment?
The university claims that due process was followed. They have not elaborated on how this was done. But from the staff perspective, whether due process was followed or not is not the issue for many staff. The fact that Reddy was a minister in that government that led to such difficulties here at USP, the staff feel insulted. They see it as a slap in the face that he did not have the strength of character to stand up in the Fiji First Party and say, I have worked at USP. It is an institution that has served Fiji well and served the region well. Why are we doing this? I know the person standing up had to have a lot of guts in that party, but that's what we expect of academics, to stand up and stand for right and just, and that is the perspective. So therefore, his appointment is seen by staff as not based on merit or need, but based on political motivation. How that's interpreted by listeners, I leave it to them. But to have someone who actually went against academic freedom, denied giving the institution the respect, it's very hard for us to swallow that he's come in at a senior fellow position. It's not a junior one, despite the VCP's statement to the newspaper, to the Fiji Times, that said it's a junior position. And I do recall the response from a gentleman, I think in Lautoka, who said, if it's a junior position, why aren't you giving it to young, aspiring academics? So that's the issue with Mahendra Reddy. And in our paper to council, because we can't undo what has been done, we recommended that he should not have a contract renewal. The pro-chancellor said that she would talk to the vice chancellor about it. That was her response in one of the papers that I saw. So, and at USP, there's an HR candidate reference report form, and I'll read the question. And the question says, was there a known concern with the candidate's integrity in the workplace? So we don't know who his referees were, and we have no idea, but that is how the staff feel about the appointment.
Talking of that appointment, and I'm going to push aside the fact that he was a former Fiji First government minister, but looking at that due process, is it not a requirement that for that type of position, the appointee must have published some research paper in recent times? I believe in Dr. Mahendra Reddy's case, he's been a politician from something like 2014, and he has not had any publications of any research papers. What do you say to that?
I think that's the million-dollar question that is being asked. There's a big focus here on publishing by VCP PAL, and for him to appoint him, endorse his appointment or support the appointment without the requisite publishing level raises many questions and reverts to that statement of us thinking it's not based on merit or need. Even if it is based on need, it doesn't meet the criteria, a criteria that is set for other academics and other applicants for positions. So yes, we are concerned about that and wonder how that all happened against our policies.
It'll be interesting to see what does come out of that appointment. Have a sip of water, Elizabeth. You deserve it. I'm going to give you a little break. You're watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is Miss Elizabeth Reade Fong, the president of the Association of the University of the South Pacific Staff. I hope you're enjoying the program. Some great stuff coming out from the USP in this discussion. Elizabeth, the Vice Chancellor President has now been reappointed for another 2 years. Is this game set and match for the Staff Association? Is it all over for the next 2 years?
Not by any stretch of the imagination. How will a vice chancellor achieve what he wants to do without the support of the staff? So we will be looking at how we can do things. The staff are the university's biggest asset, more important than infrastructure and equipment. And this asset is going to continue to work in the interests of staff. So it's not over by far, and we have plans in place.
You mentioned women in the USP setup. Let me ask you about the role of participation of women in the USP leadership hierarchy. What is the representation of women in the decision making process? I think you said there was only one woman.
Yes, there's only one woman in the senior management team as the head of a school, and the university only has one female professor. In 2011, I wrote a paper called Climbing the Coconut Tree. I took to a meeting, a Graduate Women International Federation of University Women's meeting in Mexico City. And I had looked at the statistics at the time. At that point in time, we had 4 women up in SMT, and there were plans in place and programs in place under what we call the Network of Women in Higher Education in the Pacific to move women up the ladder. And this had stemmed from a charter, the Pacific Charter for Women in Higher Education Management, which was moving along. I'm sad to say that in the 5 years that Professor Powell has been here, none of that has been achieved. In fact, we've taken a retrograde step to the situation we're in now, which is very sad. He talks about equity, he talks about inclusivity, he talks about gender balance and that, but it is not being manifested in the decision-making process, the appointments process, the support for academic women. Academic women, we understand what our responsibilities are in the home, in the community. So our support has to match that. And the Charter for Women Managers in the Higher Education in the Pacific is a point of start. And previous vice chancellors from 1996 had taken that into consideration. But even without a charter, the way the world is today, having women make decisions is very important for a balanced approach to whatever decisions are made.
All right. Excuse me. The University Council is the highest governing authority of the university. Do you feel that by not receiving the staff union paper on the agenda, the council missed an important contribution to the operations of the university?
Of course they did. But the sad thing is, they clearly didn't realize it or don't realize it. Why would you not want to hear from those who hold up the institution? Without the staff, the students don't get the service that they deserve. So the point is, hear the staff and respond accordingly. That is what we do. And we talk Talanoa, we talk Vuvale, but why don't we want to hear? Is it only, does council only want to hear us when we say nice things about the institution? They need to be more concerned about the not nice things we might say about the institution. This is our profile out in the region. Our profile is important. And as you asked, why haven't you gone to the media? It's good that we keep our issues internal and try and fix them. But when the council does not feel the need to hear us as a group. And they actually had discussion on it. And the statement was made, go back to the management. But we had already had the discussions with management, and they were our last resort. So there is some great concern, and I do believe by not hearing us, they've conveyed a certain impression on their roles and their value.
All right. As we head to the home stretch, let me say that in some quarters, Elizabeth, Vice Chancellor Pala Luwalia has been looked as the champion for democracy. He has, some say, been championing for transparency and accountability. Now, if this is true, do you not think that the staff union paper should have been tabled at the council meeting last month?
I believe it should have, and he should have been the one to support it. Then he would be seen to be walking the talk in the area of democracy, transparency, and accountability. By not doing that, he's conveyed the message to us that he's not transparent in what is being done. If there are difficult issues that he has to respond to, stand up and respond to them. I think that's what leaders are supposed to do, make decisions, especially in the difficult situations, more than the easy ones. That's when you show your true leadership. And to not want to hear from the staff who gave him all the support in his time of need, we're trying to understand why. He should have been the one standing up saying, let the paper in. Instead, I believe he did not stand up strongly enough to support it.
All right. Earlier, you were about to speak of accommodation, his accommodation, and I stopped you and I promised you that I was going to address that separately. I come to that point now. As we all know, currently the Vice Chancellor is based in Samoa. The accommodation that was previously provided to the Vice Chancellor, according to a media statement that I read last week, is, according to USP, is subject to maintenance as per USP's policies and procedures. What are the views of the staff union when it comes to the Vice Chancellor's accommodation?
The maintenance on that house has been possible since he left, which was 2021. It is now the end of 2023. Had money been released to take on the maintenance, anticipating his possible return, this should have been done 2021 and 2022. But the release of the money in those times came through the Vice Chancellor and the Executive Director of Finance. So if the maintenance on the house is outstanding, that was their decision. And I do know there was some query because I sit on the housing committee as the union representative on exactly what degree of maintenance should take place. There was some maintenance proposed and some part of it rejected, and another part which said, okay, we've got to do this in compliance with national housing regulations. So the suitable accommodation should have been ready, and there's a very strong view amongst the staff that the Vice Chancellor, when he comes to town, to Suva, should stay in the house and pay for his own food, and that there should be no need to stay in a hotel. And my little punch is seeing it's such a big house. If he comes in, oftentimes without his wife, he might share the other part of the house with the chief operating officer and reduce the costs there too.
All right. Well, that's your little piece of opinion. Elizabeth, I have a couple of viewer questions, and I'll begin with this one first, and I quote, can you please ask Elizabeth about the conflict of interest of a student leader who travels frequently with the Vice Chancellor President? This person had collected tremendous per diem from USP, and he even went to an education seminar in New Zealand, but Deputy VCP Education should have gone, end of quote. What light can you throw on that?
As far as I'm aware, if you're referring to the same person, that person is now a staff member as of July 2023. Do you know when the education meeting happened? Was that the one in March
Mm,
or April in Auckland.
that's the one. Yes, that's
That's
the
the
one I'm
one.
referring to. Yeah.
Um, I can't answer that, Sashi. It was unusual, but I will say, in defense of the student at the time, he had organized quite a number of workshops and programs for students to participate in on climate change and corruption and that kind of thing. So it could be in line with that, that the person went with the vice chancellor. Ever since July 2023, when this person was appointed to the manager development, if we're talking about the same, sorry, not manager development, he's part of the development coordination section. If it's since then, the question some staff are asking is, why is the manager not going with the vice chancellor as opposed to the young graduate? And so he is a young graduate, and he's supposed to, his primary responsibility is, I think, to provide high level strategic advice and analysis relating to donor relations. And he does have that experience, having been in the student arena dealing with donors. So that's basically my comment on that.
Yeah, the two key things I took out of that question was that this student leader travels frequently with the vice chancellor and is also a person who collects, as the quote says, tremendous per diem from USP. But that's fine. Let's leave it there. I have another viewer question, this time from Ben Cush from Canberra. His question: is the association an affiliate of the FTUC? If so, why are its executives quiet? Or are they quiet?
Yes, yes. USP OSPs and USP SU are both members of FTUC. FTUC is aware of our current situation, and they have said that they will support us however we want to be supported. So they're aware, and in the coming weeks, we will be working more closely with them. At this point in time, they know what's going on, so they're in the know.
Now, Elizabeth, may I say the $1 million question that I want to pose to you is about the strike threat. What is the plan of the staff union with regards to this?
We are required, we've reached the end of the road. We went to our council, they are no help. We are going to go on a work to rule as one step in that direction, unless the management listens to what council said, come back and let's have a discussion, and they're willing to negotiate something. We will always listen and look out for that opportunity. But in the process, we are going to go to the Ministry of Employment, and in accordance with the rules governing strike action, we will follow it. We've got to give 21 days notice to the registrar, who is the PS for employment. And apparently, I'm told he will say, yes, go ahead and lodge it, and then we could lodge strike action. But when we do that, it's got to be at a time of high impact. We're at the closure of semester now, and given the regulations and the need by the Ministry of Labor, nothing will happen for at least 42 days, given the regulations. So we will be compliant, because in by being compliant, should the staff sit down, the university will have to consider pay in that period. That is what we understand.
You just
So yes,
mentioned
quite with the action.
you mentioned a period when it's high impact. If you were to carry out that strike threat, what do you think is what sort of support are you going to receive from students and their parents alike? I mean, it's going to disrupt students' lives. What sort of support, bricks or bouquets, will you be getting?
I think we'll get a combination. I have
Hmm.
no, um, I'm sure we'll get a combination. Those who understand what we've done for the university will support us. Those who don't understand what we have done may not support us, but this your SSTP show has, I hope, conveyed messages and enabled more of the nation, more of our regional and international stakeholders to understand why we have been pushed into that situation. We have been pushed into that situation. And standing up for workers' rights is very, very important. In this country, we had 16 years where workers' rights were stifled. This is a workers' right, and it should be respected in the context. And we do hope that that is how it will be seen. But we're under no illusions that we'll get a dose of both the bouquets and the.
All right. Well, what in your view would make what in your view would make the situation at USP a win-win situation for all parties concerned, for all sides?
The win win situation. We've started a win situation with the negotiations and our log of claims on the non financial issues. The continuation of that will be to consider what the staff are asking for. It is in line with the Reserve Bank, it is in line with inflation, it's in line with what a comparator here got, what EFL. It's not unusual that pay increases are happening. This is core. If you're on $4.59 an hour and you have not had a, a an increase, a salary increase, you are struggling to survive financially. So when we stood up for the university, we were admired and we were thanked. Now we say, walk the talk and put the money in the pockets of the staff. It's not unreasonable, and there is money to pay. The university's got to try and get itself back to pre 2019 status in terms of the way it treats staff. And staff are core, and we're not asking for anything unreasonable. A happy staffing group in an organization makes for an efficient and happy organization. And our students are our focus. We are bearing this in mind, but we've come to the end of our tether. And if the management doesn't come to the table, we have, fortunately, with this new government, an option to have discussions, further discussions outside of the university with the university.
In closing, Elizabeth, what would you like to say to the university staff and students and management?
The two unions have stood together through thick and thin. And when we had the staff forum the other day, and when we stood outside council, there was everybody there, unionized members and non-union members. So what I think this reflects is there's unity amongst us. So there's strength in us standing together. This is our institution, and the action we take can only be for the betterment of this institution. We want it to become again an employer of choice, not somewhere that people are leaving. So long as we stand together, I do believe we will be supported nationally, regionally, and internationally, and we go through due process in terms of good governance, which has underpinned everything that we have done, the governance issue, due process. Not so much the person, but the governance process and issue. So that's the message I'd like to give to the staff. Thanks, staff and students. Thanks, Sashi.
Now, is there anything that I have not covered today that perhaps I may have missed that you'd like to talk about?
No, nothing that you have missed, but something that's personal to me that I'd like to clarify, because
Yes.
this was in the media during the whole Pearl saga. And this was with regard to my receiving of what we call a market loading salary. When the university under Rajesh Chandra delinked academic staff from professional staff, in that delinking, we moved from 6 bands to 5 levels. So that meant the staff were moved down in category. As the university librarian, I was very concerned because it meant for me to keep my salary level, I would have to reduce the levels of salary levels of professional librarians. I did not want that to happen, so I split the level 5 into two and put the deputy at one level, the university librarian at the next level, had the discussions with library staff, professional staff who all have masters in library science, and we signed and agreed, and human resources agreed to that as a way of addressing what I saw as an anomaly. That was fine. I got my first contract, and in that the market loading was within the university policy, which was 5 to 30%, and the 30% maximum was granted. That was granted by Professor Rajesh Chandra. When my renewal came up, which was at the end of 2018, the decision by the staff review committee was to give me a renewal on the same conditions. However, HR was in disarray. By the time they came to actually implement it, I was then told that the commission says there's no more market loading. So I rang the executive director, people and workforce strategy, Mr. Nemani, Martino Nemani. And he said, well, this is what the commission decision is. I said, but it doesn't apply to me. If you people had done this, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So because it was approved, he asked me to write to the commissioner. So I wrote to the commissioner that was appointed by council. There was a council commission. I wrote to the commissioner, explained the situation. The advice from the commissioner to Martino was, you pay her. She's entitled to it. It was approved. And had it been actioned at that time, it would not be relevant now. This issue wouldn't have come up. So that's how I continued with my market loading. And that's something I want to clarify because I was standing up for good governance and everybody was saying she's standing up for good governance, or the media, the Fiji Sun media in particular. She's standing up for good governance, but she's taking a market loading that she's not entitled to, which was totally wrong. But the way things were at the time, it was no use trying to explain that to them because they weren't interested in that explanation. So I thought I would take this opportunity to clear it with the media and all who are asking questions about how I ended up receiving a market loading.
Well, I'm glad you've been given that opportunity to clear your market loading issues. And the first part of it, when I heard that you decided to halve it and share it, is a sign of the person you are. Now, finally, a very important question for me: your views on today's SSTP program.
I'm very, very grateful to you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the staff. I know there's a wide audience out there, and I just hope that this brings greater clarity to you on the stand that we have taken. You are the taxpayers, you are the ones who fund us. And I do believe you understand hard work, you appreciate commitment and hard work, and are not averse to people getting rewarded for it at the right time. And we believe that this is the right time. So I'm really grateful to you, Sashi, as are the members of both unions, for giving us this opportunity to share our experience and explanations for the current situation, to put the university in positive light, in that we are doing this for the betterment of the institution and not for us as your first question said, that person said we are.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let me say that, again, in the interest of striking balance, I extended an invitation to the Vice Chancellor President of the USP, Professor Paul Aluwalia, to appear in today's program. Professor Paul replied and stated, I would have very much liked to do this, but unfortunately, I am traveling at the moment, and it's hard to fit this in. I very much look forward to being on the show next year. Well, as I said, there's an open invitation to you, Professor Paul, at any time. So when you're ready, let me know. Elizabeth Reade Fong, I thank you sincerely for being my chief guest on SSTP today. I believe you have shared things that a lot of my viewers may not have been aware of. I wish the staff union members and the students of USP all the very best, and I certainly hope that 455 current vacant positions, things like that, gets addressed as a matter of concern and as a matter of priority. Elizabeth, to you and all your gang, wishing you all the very best.
Thank you very much, Sashi. Appreciate being your guest and your time with me. Thank you again.
And I also extend that invitation to you at any time if the union wants to have a say on SSTP, you know how to find me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinaka Vakalevu. You have a wonderful day. I just read a comment. Someone says, "Superb, Libby. We need kava now." So there you go.
I think I need it too. Yes, they're right.
All right. Have a wonderful day. God bless. Cheers now. Bye
You too,
bye.
Sashi. God bless
Now,
you.
to our viewers, stay tuned because I'm going to be talking about our guests for future programs. As I said, well, we ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. As I say, Fijians want to know. That's just about it for episode 55 this week. As always, to my SSTP team, thank you for today's episode. I must also thank all our viewers for watching this program today, and a big Vinaka Vakalevu to those viewers who have taken time to provide their positive feedback with their comments and their questions, etc., sent to me via Messenger, phone calls, and the likes and the emojis that have been coming through. So, next week at this stage, I cannot announce who the guest is going to be, but on the 17th of December, that's Sunday, 17th of December, my chief guest is going to be the Minister for Sugar and Ethnic Affairs, the Honorable Charanjit Singh. Now, that will make for quite an exciting interview, I believe. Not only a successful businessman, but a gentleman who I believe talks the talk and walks the walk. So we'll find that out, and that's coming your way on the 17th of December, Sunday week. For next Sunday's guest, hopefully, I should be in a position to broadcast that on our SSTP page in the next few days. So, folks, until the next episode, I wish you all a very safe and happy week. In closing, I leave you with this quote from Malcolm X, who said, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." I'll repeat that. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. That quote from Malcolm X. Well, till the next program, I am Sashi Singh, bidding you goodbye, namaste, and nisamode. Goodbye, world.